Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're stepping right into the high-stakes, multi-billion-dollar world of advertising. It's this incredibly intense space where boundless, wild creativity collides directly with some of the strictest legal and ethical frameworks on the planet. We're going to look closely at how the industry ensures that what you see on your screen, up on a billboard, or scrolling through your social media feed isn't just persuasive, but fundamentally truthful and safe. It's a massive balancing act between capturing your attention and maintaining absolute integrity. To really understand why this matters so much, just think about the stark contrast between two very different types of campaigns. On one hand, you have the gold standard, right? A marketing campaign built entirely on clear, authenticated, verifiable product claims. That's how you build real brand loyalty and consumer trust. But then there's the dark side of the industry. The deceptive claims, the cherry-pick statistics, or those hidden caveats that ultimately end in a courtroom with a judge's gavel coming down hard on a desk. The fallout from deceptive advertising doesn't just bruise reputations. It triggers massive, sometimes catastrophic, legal and financial consequences. To set the stage for our investigation today, I want to read you this precise statement regarding the industry's landscape. Quote, "Truthfulness, decency, and social responsibility are the pillars of advertising integrity. While clients hold ultimate legal responsibility, agencies face immense risks. We investigate why advertising agencies must advise clients on consumer protection laws, navigate restricted media channels, and implement strict self-regulatory procedures." End quote. Agencies aren't just out there making pretty pictures. They are absolutely crucial gatekeepers for consumer protection. Section 1. Defining advertising integrity. What makes ads compliant? Okay, let's dive into this using the foundational framework for our analysis, the SASB standards for the advertising and marketing industry. Now, part of the IFRS Foundation, these SASB standards provide the specific, rigorous metrics that companies actually use to disclose their sustainability risks and ethical practices to investors. So we aren't just talking about abstract ethics today. We are looking at the exact, hard criteria and data points the financial and corporate world uses to measure advertising integrity. When advertising campaigns are reviewed for adherence to self-regulatory procedures, they're measured against 7 incredibly strict criteria. First, legality. It simply must comply with all applicable laws. Second, decency. It can't violate local cultural norms. Third, honesty. Meaning, it must not abuse consumer trust or exploit a lack of experience. Fourth, truthfulness. Absolutely no misleading content. Fifth is social responsibility. Sixth, fairness. So it can't be derogatory to competitors or plagiarized. And finally, seventh, privacy. It has to strictly comply with data protection regulations. Every single ad is supposed to pass through this intense filtering process. Now, what's really fascinating here is how the SASB standards specifically define social responsibility in the context of advertising. It's explicitly defined as respecting human dignity and remaining free from any form of discrimination based on race, national origin, religion, gender, age, disability, or sexual orientation. It highlights the profound, real-world ethical obligation these agencies have. I mean, they literally shape culture. And with that immense power comes the mandate to ensure their creative output is socially responsible and respectful of all demographics. Section 2. The cost of deception. The financial consequences. Under the SASB advertising and marketing topics, there's one metric that really stands out. SVAD 270A1. This specific metric requires entities to track and disclose the total amount of monetary losses as a result of legal proceedings associated with false, deceptive, or unfair advertising. Investors demand to know exactly how much money an agency is losing simply because they failed to uphold the truth. So, the crucial point to understand is that these monetary losses are not just the legal fees paid to attorneys to defend a case. No, the SASB standards explicitly state that these losses encompass all monetary liabilities paid to opposing parties or others. We're talking about hard fines, civil judgments, regulatory penalties, disgorgement, and restitution. This is actual capital flowing directly out of an agency because a campaign crossed that line from persuasive to deceptive. Furthermore, when these financial losses do occur, agencies can't just pay the fine and sweep it all under the rug. They are required to transparently describe the nature of the issue and the mandatory corrective actions they've taken. This transparent reporting includes disclosing specific changes made to their operations or management structure, updating their internal processes, completely overhauling their choice of business partners or tech, and implementing additional training for their staff to ensure the deception never happens again. To avoid those catastrophic losses in the first place, the industry relies heavily on internal mechanisms. Section 3, the power of self-regulation, catching violations early. Under SASB metric SV-AD 270A.2, advertising entities are required to disclose a very specific number. They have to report the percentage of their advertising and marketing campaigns measured by revenue that actually went through a formal review by a self-regulatory assessment procedure. This tells stakeholders precisely how much of the agency's work is being double-checked for adherence to jurisdictional requirements, guidelines, and those 7 pillars of integrity we discussed earlier.
But, it's not enough to simply say you reviewed the campaigns. Agencies must also disclose the actual results of those reviews. They have to break down the percentage of reviewed campaigns that were truly found to be in compliance versus those that failed the criteria. This dual reporting, both the volume of review and the rate of success, provides a crystal clear picture of an agency's internal ethical compass and their operational discipline.
Section 4. Navigating restricted products, the highly regulated spaces. We are now moving into what is arguably the most highly regulated, legally complex, and potentially dangerous space in the entire advertising world. Think about the extreme complexities involved here. How do agencies create effective, engaging campaigns for products that simultaneously require intense consumer protection measures? When you're marketing something that inherently carries health or safety risks, the standard rules of advertising just completely fly out the window. The creative process becomes bound by rigid laws that dictate exactly what can be said, where it can be said, and to whom it can be shown. Because the risks associated with these specific products are so incredibly high, SASB requires agencies to use metric SVAD 270A3. This mandate requires agencies to explicitly carve out and disclose the exact percentage of their total revenue that is generated specifically from promoting alcohol and tobacco products. Investors, and frankly the public, need to know how reliant an advertising agency is on revenue from these highly restricted, heavily scrutinized industries. And this brilliantly illustrates just how precise these standards really are. There is absolutely zero room for ambiguity. The SASB standards define an alcohol product as literally any product capable of being consumed that contains more than 1/2 of 1%, 0.5%, of ethanol or ethyl alcohol by volume. If a client's product hits that exact chemical threshold, the agency must immediately apply a totally different, highly restrictive set of advertising protocols. The exact same strict parameters apply to tobacco. A tobacco product is rigidly defined as any product made or derived from tobacco intended for human consumption. But notice the really crucial addition here. It also includes any component, part, or accessory of a tobacco product. This covers traditional cigarettes, roll your own, smokeless tobacco, and the myriad of accessories associated with their use. The regulatory net is cast incredibly wide to ensure absolutely no loopholes exist. When managing campaigns for these restricted products, agencies must flawlessly execute 3 major steps. First, they must adhere to specific prohibitions, like, for example, never ever targeting minors. Second, they have to enforce strict media restrictions, ensuring ads only appear in designated age-appropriate channels. And third, they must seamlessly integrate mandatory labeling disclosures. We've all seen this visual transition, right? An engaging, creative ad that ultimately dedicates a significant portion of its screen or audio time to stark, clear warning labels about the product's health impacts. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final thought to really chew on. We've seen the strict criteria, the heavy financial penalties, and the intense scrutiny on restricted products. But fundamentally, this entire system relies entirely on the integrity of the agencies themselves. So if advertising agencies truly are the designated gatekeepers of truth and decency in our media landscape, what happens to our collective consumer trust when those gates are left unguarded? It's a question that impacts every single one of us, every single time we look at a screen. Thanks so much for joining me to break this all down.